You want to know something nobody tells you? You're not just connected to the stars. You are the stars, and I can prove it. Not poetically, not metaphorically. I mean it in the most literal physical chemical sense possible. The iron running through your blood right now, it was forged inside a star that exploded before our sun even existed. The carbon in every cell of your body was cooked in stellar fusion reactions that took millions of years. You didn't come from the universe. You are the universe, temporarily arranged into something that can ask questions about itself. Let's talk about what stars actually do, because most people have a very romantic idea of stars. They're pretty lights. They're far away. They twinkle. That's fine, but here's what's really going on. A star is basically a pressure cooker the size of 1,000,000 Earths, running at temperatures of tens of millions of degrees for billions of years. At those temperatures and pressures, atomic nuclei, which normally repel each other violently, get forced together. They fuse, and when they fuse, they release energy. That energy is what makes the star shine. That energy is what makes life on Earth possible. But the fusion itself, that's where it gets interesting. It starts with hydrogen. Two hydrogen nuclei slam together hard enough, they fuse into helium. The star burns hydrogen for most of its life. Our sun has been doing exactly this for 4.5 billion years. But eventually, the hydrogen runs low. The core contracts, heats up even more, and then something new becomes possible. Helium starts fusing. 3 helium nuclei come together and you get carbon. Carbon fuses with helium and you get oxygen. Keep going. Neon, magnesium, silicon. Each step requires more heat, more pressure, a more desperate star. And then you hit iron. Iron is where the music stops. Fusing iron doesn't release energy. It absorbs it. The star has been running on the profit from fusion reactions its entire life, and suddenly the account is empty. The core collapses in less than a second. And then the rebound. The outer layers of the star fall inward, hit the collapsing core, and explode outward in the most violent event the universe produces, a supernova. For a few weeks, a single dying star can outshine an entire galaxy of hundreds of billions of stars. And in that explosion, everything the star spent billions of years building gets scattered across light years of space. Carbon, oxygen, iron, all of it drifting through the galaxy for millions of years until gravity pulls it into a new cloud, a new solar system, a new planet, our planet, and eventually you. That iron in your blood? A star had to die to make it, had to die, had to explode, had to scatter itself across the galaxy, had to wait millions of years for gravity to reassemble the pieces, just to end up carrying oxygen through your veins this morning. Now let's follow one of those atoms. Pick any carbon atom in your body, anyone. That atom has a history that makes human civilization look like a rounding error. It was in a star, then it was in space, then it was probably in the early ocean, dissolved in water, part of some ancient chemistry experiment that life was running before there was anything we'd call life. Then maybe it was in a plant, then in an animal that ate the plant, then in something that ate that animal, over and over, through hundreds of millions of years, through forms of life that no longer exist, through catastrophes that reshape the planet. And at some point, recently, almost laughably recently in cosmic terms, it ended up in you. You didn't create that atom. You didn't earn it. You're borrowing it. You've been borrowing all of your atoms, every single one, and at some point, you'll give them back. They'll go into the soil, into the air, into other living things, and the whole process continues without you. The atoms don't care. They were here before you, and they'll be here long after. Here's what's strange about that. Most people hear it and feel small. I don't think that's the right reaction. I think it's actually the opposite. A friend of mine, an artist, once told me that knowing the science of a flower ruins it. He said, I can look at it and appreciate its beauty. But you, Feynman, you see it as cells and molecules and chemical processes. Doesn't that strip away the magic? I told him, I know. It adds to it. I see the beauty he sees. I see the delicate color, the symmetry. But I also see something more. I see that the color exists because electrons inside those petals are jumping between energy levels, absorbing certain wavelengths of light and reflecting others back at you. I see that the smell is molecules, actual physical molecules, drifting off the flower and fitting into receptors in your nose, like a key into a lock. I see that every cell in that flower is a machine of staggering complexity, built by billions of years of trial and error, running on sunlight. The science doesn't kill the beauty. It reveals a deeper beauty that the naked eye can't reach. And this is what bothers me about the way people use the star stuff idea. You are made of star stuff. Carl said it, it's spread everywhere, it's on coffee mugs, it's in graduation speeches, and people hear it and they nod and they feel something for a moment, and then they move on. They treat it like a poem, something to appreciate, and then set down. That's too easy. That's not thinking. That's decoration. Because if you actually follow the idea, if you don't stop at the poetic surface, it gets much stranger. Your atoms were in a star. Before that star existed, those atoms were drifting in the remnants of an even older star. Before that, they were hydrogen, produced in the first 3 minutes of the universe's existence. Your atoms are almost as old as time itself. They have been part of nuclear reactions inside stars, part of the raw vacuum of interstellar space, part of ancient oceans, part of creatures that no longer exist. And now they're arranged temporarily into a pattern complex enough to read these words and wonder about its own origins. What are you exactly? You're not your atoms. They're constantly being replaced. You're not your memories. Those can be lost. You're a pattern, a temporary, improbable, extraordinarily complex pattern of matter and energy, asking questions about the universe that produced it. And here's the part that I think people miss entirely: 13.8 billion years. That's how long the universe has been running. For most of that time, there was nothing that could ask a question. No curiosity, no wonder, no comprehension. Just physics happening to itself. Hydrogen collapsing into stars, stars burning and exploding, heavier elements forming, galaxies assembling, planets cooling, chemistry getting more complex, life emerging, failing, adapting, surviving, brains growing more intricate over hundreds of millions of years. And then you, a configuration of matter that can look up and ask, where did all this come from? That is not small. That is the opposite of small. The universe spent 13.8 billion years building the equipment necessary to understand itself. And you're it. You're the instrument. Every time you look at the night sky and feel something, that's the universe examining itself through the only tools it has: curious, temporary, fragile arrangements of its own atoms. I've never understood why people find that diminishing. It's the most extraordinary thing I can imagine. Curiosity, to me, was never just something I happened to have. It felt like an obligation. You have this remarkable, unlikely ability to understand things, really understand them, not just accept them. And to waste that on comfortable ignorance seems almost criminal. The universe doesn't hand out this capacity lightly. 4 billion years of evolution to build a brain that can do calculus, and people use it to feel vaguely good about a bumper sticker. No, dig deeper, always dig deeper. Because when you dig deeper into the star stuff idea, you don't find comfort. You find something much better. You find genuine strangeness. You find questions that don't have easy answers. You find that the boundary between you and the rest of the universe is much blurrier than it looks. The atoms you think of as yours are in constant exchange with the world around you. You breathe out carbon that becomes part of trees. You eat food that becomes part of you. You shed cells that become part of the soil. You're not a sealed container. You're a process, an ongoing dynamic exchange with everything around you. I, a universe of atoms, an atom in the universe. I've said that before, and I meant both halves of it equally. I'm a universe, a staggeringly complex, self-aware arrangement of matter that contains its own entire cosmos of experience, thought, perception, And I'm an atom, one tiny, temporary, utterly replaceable configuration in a universe of almost incomprehensible size and age. Both things are true at once. And sitting with both of them, really sitting with them, not rushing to feel better or feel worse, that's the thing I'd want to leave you with. Not awe as a performance, not the performed wonder you see in people who want to seem deep. Real attention, the feeling of actually looking at something instead of just seeing it. You can hold your own hand and know, really know, that the atoms in it were forged in a star that exploded 5 billion years ago, drifted through space, fell into the solar system, cycled through the ocean and the earth and other living things, and ended up arranged right now in a shape that can wonder about its own history. That's not a metaphor. That's just what's happening. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. You are, in the most literal sense, made of its oldest material. You are continuous with everything that has ever happened, and you have, for a brief, improbable window, the ability to understand that. Don't waste it on easy wonder. Go find the hard kind.